Thank you everyone for attending in person and online. If I can please remind our guests online to turn off their microphones for the event. Thank you. I think so I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land which will be the Larrakia people. I pay my respect to elders past and present and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person present in this room and online. So the first thing in our agenda is me. So who am I, how and why I'm here? So my name is Sonu Yadav. I am a molecular scientist, principal molecular scientist in biosecurity, Northern Territory government. I was born in India, so very far away from here. And as a child, I used to travel a lot. So I traveled a lot in India. I traveled to different parts and states of India, and I changed like 8 to 9 schools, not because I'm a bad student, that's another story, but because of my dad's job. So my father was in military and we had to move every 3 to 4 years. And this actually shaped a lot of my character and my personality in early years, moving cities and meeting different people, getting to know the diversity of India and, just different cultures and language and food and biodiversity. Beautiful jungles and forests of India and all the beautiful birds and animals that live in there. So it kind of sparked this curiosity in me from early on about nature and people. But when I was in year 10, I had to choose my subjects for year 11 else. And I was very confused between science and social. So I couldn't choose.
Yeah, that's the Vicki O'Halloran leadership one.
Is there a bad copy in your
No.
Tanya, I think your mic is. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Sorry about that. So yeah, year 10. So I was in year 10 and it was the time when I had to change my school. And my dad and I were sitting in this principal's office, very good, nice, fancy school. I was very excited. And the principal just said, oh, you scored like 99% in social science. You should definitely take social science. And I was like, science. And he's like, yeah, that's great. You've got 90% in science, but I can offer you social science. And, as 15-year-old me, I was just like, I want to protest. So I just want to take science. I don't know. I was just like, I'm going for science. Like, I'm going to change the school. So I'm anyway going to go to a school which could, like, the school that could offer me science. So that's what happened. I took science. I did all my schooling. Everything was okay. But after finishing school, I still didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with my science, subjects. And in India, there's a thing. If you don't know what to do, you study. You go to uni, be a good student, just do whatever, just study. So that's what I did. I did Bachelors of Science. And while I was doing my units, I was doing a lot of internships and volunteerships just to figure out, what might interest me. So I did volunteerships in, Red Cross hospitals, in cancer labs, in plant tissue culture labs, and everywhere else. But still, I wasn't very sure if I want to take medical as a profession. So finished my bachelor's, and I was still in this, state where I was like, I don't know what to do next. And my parents like, study. So I did Masters of Science. And in Masters of Science, I had 1 year of coursework and 1 year of research work. And then for that, I started sending out emails to a lot of research labs in India saying, please take me, I'm really interested, I can do this. And I heard back from this one research lab far away in different state saying, you could come here and we can offer you all this scholarship. So it was really great. I was very excited. I was like, yes, I can go and now just research. And on the top of that lab was working on tigers. So, I was like, this is it, this is my career moment. So I moved I went to the lab, my research project started, and for the project I was given 800 tiger pool samples. So, sorry, we call them scat in scientific language. So that's how I started my research career. It's like, oh, here are the 800 samples. And what I was doing with those scat samples were extracting DNA from these degraded samples and identifying how many tigers live in this forest, in this particular national park. So the research question was really interesting and I really loved the project. So I finished the project and I was again like, what's next? But this time I knew that I really like wildlife genetics. I really want to work with animals. So I applied for a lot of different positions. I found one. This lab was working on tigers as well and the genetics. And we also out and do some field work. So I could actually go out in the forest, search for tiger poo and get chased by, elephants while I was searching for poo. But, this sounds like very funny now, but I was really about to die at that time. It was huge. The elephant was running behind me. So, but it was part of the fun, right? Like it was just like me, and I was like, yeah, like I'm achieving all these different things in my life and getting chased by elephant and still surviving. So I should do something more. So I finished this other work as well, and I worked with tiger poo, but also worked with leopard, hyenas, and all these big mammals, and got to see some more forest. So very excited. And then after that, I was like, this time I want to study. So I want to go and do a PhD and do some more research. So I started applying for different projects. There was one, and I knew that now I also wanted to study evolutionary biology. So I was very interested in knowing how species evolve, how their DNA changes with time, what happens when they're exposed to different environment and landscape. So there was this one project in Sydney, and I applied for this, and they gave me full scholarship. Everything was covered, so I moved to Sydney for my PhD. I finished my PhD in 3 years. I worked on insects this time. So I studied why specialist insects are specialists and why generalists are generalists using their DNA. So it was really exciting. And then COVID happened, but luckily I kind of submitted my thesis at that time, and then I was searching for jobs again. And there was still this mammalian thing in me, like, I really wanted to work on big animals again. So I found another job at University of New South Wales, working on dingoes this time. So not on poop, but a little bit of. That's like my story, right? Playing with cats and dogs poop. But then I studied dingo genomics this time, so comparing dingo genome with domestic dog and wolf, and answering this long-standing, evolutionary question: how different dingoes are from the rest of the canines. And it was like, the study was very popular. It was covered by a lot of media articles and everything, and it was very exciting because I got to travel a lot of dingo sanctuary and see a bit more of Australia. I did a lot of regional remote travels as well, so it was very good. And then after finishing this project, I was again in the job market and searching for jobs in where I can use my skills now. So I applied for a job in Darwin, and I got offered and accepted the job. So in my current position, I'm using all of these skills that I've gained throughout these different projects. Basically, using these molecular skills to trying to protect Australia's biodiversity in agriculture. So I study how exotic species enters into Australia, what do they bring, what type of genetic material they bring, how can we stop them from spreading, what they are, so helping a lot of biosecurity surveillance and monitoring. So almost that's it. But you remember the social science side of it when I was 15 years old? Well, it never went away, right? Because it was just, it was the thing that I wanted to do always. So now I'm also studying social science degree at CDU. Back to it again. And I'm also leading a community science project where my team and I, we go out to remote regional areas and we do hands-on workshop with kids, and we extract DNA from insects, and we talk about science and STEM and how to become a scientist. So that's me. Thank you for listening. And now, the moment we are all waiting, speaker of the day, Honourable Vicki O'Halloran. Thank you. So the Honourable Vicki O'Halloran AO was sworn in as 22nd Administrator of the Northern Territory on 31st of October 2017 and remained in the office until 30th of January 2023. As Administrator, Her Honour represented the Crown in right of the Northern Territory. Her Honour performs a similar constitutional role to that of the State Governors. Her Honour was born in Tasmania and moved to Darwin in 1989, where she has resided for the past 34 years. As Administrator of the Northern Territory, Her Honour valued the importance of supporting and promoting the Territory and Territorians. She was patron to 60 organizations and actively supported the development of emerging territory leaders. Her Honour was very passionate about sharing Government House Northern Territory with the wider community and pursued innovative opportunities to enable access to thousands of Territorians and visitors each year. Prior to her appointment as Administrator of the Northern Territory, Her Honour was the Chief Executive Officer of Somerville Community Services. She has been a member of a range of boards and committees locally and nationally. Her Honour was Chair of National Disability Services, Northern Territory, serving as National President of National Disability Services from 2012 to 2015, and Chair of Northern Territory Government Ministerial Advisory Council on Disability Reform. Her Honour was a committee member of the Northern Territory Government Community Benefit Fund, the National Disability Insurance Scheme Provising Committee, the National Disability Insurance Scheme Operations Committee, the National Disability Insurance Agency Independent Advisory Council's Housing Innovation Working Group, and the Australian Institute of Company Directors, Northern Territory. She was also a member of the AICD Not-for-Profit Chairs Forum and the Territory Economic Summit External Reference Group. Her Honour was also the Chair of the Northern Territory Housing Appeals Board for 8 years and a member of the Children Australia Journal's editorial board. She has been a juror on numerous award panels, most recently the Australian Institute of Architects Northern Territory Architecture Awards. In 2015, Her Honour was the Territory finalist for the Australian of the Year. In 2013, she was appointed to the Northern Territory Government Events Ambassador Program, a position she held for 2 years. Her Honour was awarded the Telstra Northern Territory Businesswoman of the Year in 1998. Her Honour has represented the Northern Territory on the national and international stage, promoting the importance of good governance and social inclusion. During her tenure as the Chief Executive Officer of Somerville, the organisation was nationally recognised as an employer of the choice and champion of cultural diversity. Her Honour was invested as an Officer of the Order of Australia in 2019 for her distinguished service to the people of Northern Territory. In 2014, she was invested as a member of the Order of Australia for her significant service to people with a disability. In December 2022, Her Honour was appointed a Commander of the Royal Victorian Order by His Majesty the King in recognition of her eminent service as Administrator of Northern Territory during her lengthy term. Her Honour holds a Bachelor of Children's Services and a Diploma of Business. Her Honour and Mr. O'Halloran married in 1993. They have a daughter named Coco, who works and resides in Melbourne. So please join me welcoming one.
Wow, what a reminder. You do forget about days gone by. I was having a little chuckle when you said 1998 for the Telstra Businesswomen's Awards, which I'll touch on. I have so many notes here today that I'll touch on that. But I was thinking 1998, it's probably way before you were born, which makes me feel rather ancient. But anyway,
You were born? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing yours. I also extend my acknowledgement of the Larrakia of people, the traditional owners of the beautiful lands and waters that surround us. Great location in Darwin. And I extend that acknowledgement to all people from diverse backgrounds in this room that make the Northern Territory a wonderful place. So good morning, everyone. just want to say thank you for having me. I feel really humbled to be asked to do these things, and I respect as a past administrator you have a bit of currency, but nonetheless I'm sort of a bit yesteryear. But I thought I would tell you a little bit about my story, and also I thought I'd be bold and share some of my views with you today, and also some of my experiences. So here we go. As a little girl, I had a very good friend, and she was with me always and really shaped my journey. She was much loved by her family, but also spent time alone playing and imagining her future. Early years at school were good, and on the whole, friendships were fun, but not always. So as an aside, I've written in my column this morning, so bear with me. I was reflecting on the fact that I often think about undertaking a test on myself and wondering how other people would describe me so that I better understand my strengths. And I suppose at the end of my career, that reflection comes. I wonder how it is throughout my career that other people have this with me. I think I know what I am not, but I'm not always sure of what I am. And I do think this exercise is telling. Would others say that I am kind or courageous and inclusive and considerate? Those are all important traits to me. I hope so. But what I do know is what I am not. And that is, I'm not unkind, I'm not uncaring, I'm not a bully, I'm not inconsiderate, and neither am I critical of others. And they're all the traits that I do not like. So food for thought, back to the story. So this little girlfriend of mine enjoyed school and her friends, and she loved her family. Her holidays were at the beach, and she was easygoing. Her 4 brothers were very loving, I observed, and they were attentive. She didn't have much, but that was okay because she was surrounded by love. There were times when I learned about her challenges, her sadness, her terrible homesickness when it came to go away to school, although she was 15. She would cry, and she would feel a deep and desperate longing to be at home in her country town where all was familiar. I wasn't a great comfort to her. I didn't necessarily feel sorry for her because I knew that this was a critical part of her development. I could see it happening. She was coming into her own and building resilience and a certain style that sat her on the outside of her peers and her friends a bit. But nonetheless, although unique, it was a part of who she was meant to be. I tell you her story for many reasons, but we'll get to that. She went on to fall in love at a young age, but thank goodness it was with the right bloke. He was kind and generous and made her very happy, and she's still with him 45 years later. After a career in early childhood development where she developed a lifelong commitment to improving the lives of children and later on adults with disabilities, she travelled the world and in 1 year worked 21 jobs in the UK as a temp, as they were known then. And I'm not quite sure how she achieved this, but the homesickness was gone, well, most of the time. So much so that she travelled the length of the country to live beside her parents, who she was very close with in her adult years. So she was fine spending time away from them, but still felt that desire in her adult years to be close to her parents. And these years were all about the good life, which included fun times with her lifelong partner, many projects, career highs, career lows. But most of all, what continued was her genuine desire to change people's lives for the better. And that little friend of mine wasn't ambitious, but liked her work and wanted to excel at every task assigned to her. But this meant staying in her own lane, and her generosity of heart didn't waver. And this little girl was me. I was my best friend. There was a lot of self-talk, self-reflection, and often a lone ride along the way because my confidant was my little friend inside, who I trusted wholeheartedly. She backed me, she gave me strength, and she gave me courage to be bold and dream and manifest my future in a way that has been very rewarding in so many facets of my life. And I still manifest my future. Although I have many acquaintances, I can still count my close friends on one hand, and I'm 60. I think it's called playing your cards close to your chest. If I think about my achievements, my greatest would be our daughter, who you've heard her name's Coco, and she's 24 and living in Melbourne. She grew up here. We adopted Coco when she was 4 months of age. And look, she's the best thing since sliced bread. She's, our love for her is engulfing and really overwhelming at times, as you can see. Melbourne's a long way away. But I often reflect about how things have occurred throughout my career. From working in a preschool classroom to leading an organisation and being the administrator, your administrator of the Northern Territory. And there is a bit in between, of course, but we don't have all day. If I wasn't ambitious, and I wasn't, and I'm still not ambitious, what was it? I've written a few notes about this for you because people often ask me this. You must have been extremely ambitious to end up as the administrator of the Northern Territory. And I said, well, I was never ambitious and I just seem to land in places. So I think the formula for anyone that wants to know is consistency. As I mentioned before, staying in your own lane, sticking to you, your own brand, not desiring what others have, but being content with your lot. Being respectful and well-mannered, after all, who doesn't appreciate good manners? And working in a way that encompasses the view that there is always someone watching and being true to yourself. I think that's the heart of it. It's easy to say, do not worry about what others think of you. And I think sometimes we say that we're not concerned about what others think of you. We just have to get on with it. But I'm not sure how to shake that off completely. I certainly don't dwell on what other people think of me, but I know that I like to be liked by those people that I respect. I would now like to take a break from that and talk to you about mentorship because I've had an interesting mentorship journey. I had formal mentors where the relationship was in place for the purpose of growing and learning and seeking feedback and advice. I also had numerous informal mentors that were reliable and knowledgeable and there for me. And I had mentors, and this is a secret, so don't tell anybody, who didn't know they were mentors. I would stalk them from afar. I'd watch their interactions. I would study their approaches. And I did all of that because they impressed me. They impressed me when I first met them. They impressed me through when I watched them in meetings or giving presentations. And one of these great Territorians is still blissfully unaware of this. I might tell him one day. He unknowingly taught me so much, and to this day still teaches me so much. I also realised the importance of specialisation. Now, I'm not sure how you become a special insect or a normal insect, but from a human perspective, I thought, it is important to try and know as much as you can, or more than others, if you possibly can, about one subject. So I needed to choose that. And I chose good governance. And it was at a time when governance was being spoken about, but I'm not sure we really had a handle on what it meant for us in our day-to-day businesses or consultancies or in government. And so it was coming to terms with that. I undertook the AICD course and I did those tricky assignments and that exam and always attended their updates. Alongside this, I studied good chairmanship. And I was always trying to take notes of the tricks of the trade that were used by many and observe people who were chairing big meetings, small meetings, tenuous meetings, challenging meetings, people that managed debate, ensured that the quietest person in the room had a voice, that the loudest person was tempered when they needed to be, that those that spoke far too much and were off topic, were dealt with in a kind manner, but a direct manner. And that was tricky. So I realised that some of that training had to happen on the job. So to give you an example of this, on Monday of this week, I thought the best way to do that is just to go back through my CV. And thanks for reminding me of some of the things I've done. I'll pop them in. But I did a snapshot for you of a specific year of my career, so you can best understand my community involvement, my board and committee responsibilities over a 12-month period. Because when I became administrator, people would often say to me, "Oh, how do you become an administrator?" Because my predecessors were often, QCs, now KCs, or people who had held senior defence roles. They've never had an administrator who came from the not-for-profit sector. And so I never probably had time to talk enough about the work that my board, when I was at Somerville Community Services, encouraged me to undertake, because whilst you're out undertaking other board commitments and reaching out to community, you're building up supporters for your organisation. Your marketing is free, because those relationships, whilst you're building those relationships, they're learning about the work that you're undertaking. But anyway, in this particular year, that's just a snapshot out of my CV, I was chair of the Northern Territory Housing Appeals Board, and there were regular administrative hearings. And we had a 3-tier appeals board at that stage in housing. So, as a tenant, if you were unhappy, you go to housing with a complaint, or if you're a neighbour that was unhappy, there'd be a complaint process at the first tier. And then if that wasn't resolved, it'd be excellent. It would be escalated, I should say, to the CEO, senior directors, and if it couldn't be resolved at that level, it would come to the appeals board. So we'd have like a civil administrative tribunal hearing. And the first of those was with a gentleman with a 10-gallon hat on in Alice Springs in a motel room, where they'd taken the bed up and set up a desk for me and the team from housing. It was hilarious. Because what I found with these, this is a little aside for you, is that in those days I would receive a whole heap of manila files like this to my home address, and they'd all be sealed up. I'd take them, pop them in I had a special filing cabinet, so they were sealed, and I'd read the file from woe to go. And I'd probably read about a very naughty tenant and the grievances of neighbours. And when it would come to the hearing day, I'd be well versed with pages of notes and trying to take a balanced approach. But more often than not, by the time the hearing came around, the story was about something totally different, about why they were extremely unhappy with their tenancies and all that had gone wrong, and had nothing to do with everything that I'd taken notes with in the file. So it was really about cutting to the chase, understanding the predicament of being a neighbour or being a tenant, or extended family situations, or just when sometimes in life things are going wrong. And so interesting. In that same year, I was chair of 2 ministerial advisory councils. I was a board member of the wonderful St Philip's College in Alice Springs. I was chair of the St Philip's College Audit and Risk Committee, chair of the Essington School Darwin, a Northern Territory Council of Social Services board member, chair of National Disability Services NT, national president of National Disability Services, co-chair of the NT Government Strategic Plan 2030, which was the Henderson government, member of the Northern Territory Government Board of Studies, member of the Northern Territory Government Urban Design Advisory Group. I'd always wondered why I was invited to be a part of that, because I was really surrounded by developers and builders, but it was a real opportunity to have them look at accessibility, think about families with lots of children and prams, and people who have assistance with walking aids or wheelchairs, and they were very receptive to that. I was always very grateful for that opportunity. I was chair of the Widdell Design Housing Competition. That was a suburb that was going to be, that might well be or not be, and a member of the NT Architects Awards judging panel that you've heard, and look at a few other volunteer roles. So what did they say? You know, if you want something done, ask a busy person. But I don't recall ever being overwhelmed in that year. I really thought back to how old our daughter was, where we were living. I think I was just busy. But I also understood what self-care meant. And it's so important to ensure that you know what self-care means to you and what really makes you happy and what takes your mind off those things, because you can give it your best and be attentive and do all of the reading. So when I'd learned what that was, I ensured that I had a good dose of it every week. So by the time Monday morning came, I was refreshed again to give it my all. And, you know, as women, I think you're just good at juggling sometimes. We can really do a whole lot of things. And for me, I was at my best under pressure. I delivered. I was learning a lot from one group that I could give to another. So it was like spreading the love and spreading the knowledge in many ways. I now want to share with you some highlights of my career. Firstly, it was securing the role of the director of a childcare centre in Tasmania. I was 23 and I thrived in this role. It was the diversity, the overall responsibility, the administration, the financial work, having the code to the safe, you know, I just felt so important, the hands-on with the children, and I still remember that code. I hope they've changed the safe. And the individual programming and planning. And I was going to jump 10 years or so ahead, but I'll just go back 10 years because it occurred to me on the drive here this morning to talk to you about when I first started work, and I was 11. So I grew up in a small town in Tasmania, and around the corner from us was a little shop, and it's where really everybody got everything, I suppose. We did have a supermarket in the town, sort of, you know, another 5 minutes walk when you're in a small town and you can run to the shop in 1 minute, as opposed to going, you know, up into what we used to call up the street into the main town. And I was 11, and when I think back now, the owner used to leave me there on my own. This was after a couple of months. And he'd go missing on a Saturday from 9 a.m. till 5 and sometimes not come back at all. So I would just close up. But during the day, you know, the coat man would come and I'd have to, you know, there'd be resupplying. And so I'd have to think, oh gosh, I need to do a check of what we have and a bit of audit. And I'd restock the shelves and I'd display the vegetables. And in those days, people would come in and want, you know, 2 pounds of pumpkin. You'd have to cut this big pumpkin with a big knife and weigh it. And a lot of people weren't paying cash. They had little books. So the Smith family had this book and a duplicate copy, and everybody had credit, and people would come in to pay for the end of the month. One of those fancy big tools with lots of cash inside, and I'd sweep the floor and mop the floor and fill up the lolly jars. So, you know, I was in my element. I was really pleased about all of this. And I was allowed to have a bottle of fizzy cordial, we call it in Tasmania, and some sweets, which we could never afford. So life was good. And at the end of the day, if he didn't come back, I'd lock the door, put the key in my pocket, take all the money in a bag and go home. And home was just down the street and around the corner, but I'd run all of the way. When I became an adult, I learned why he used to leave me alone in the shop, because it was his escape from his partner. He was having an affair and playing golf on Saturdays and just leaving me to it. So, you know, it was interesting, you know, in my element, but didn't realise that I was covering up the, you know, the whole saga that was happening in small town. But anyway, and that was an aside and just a thought that came into my head this morning. So an early start to work life, but love the responsibility. So jump ahead 10 years or so from that 23-year-old. So that 1998 moment at the Telstra Business Women's Awards, when I was sitting in the back corner eating chocolate cake. Never eat dessert at those events, but I did this day. I thought, that looks delicious. I'm starving. I didn't really understand the history or the currency of the awards at all. Nonetheless, I was having a good time. Yes, I'd been nominated by someone who to this day I have no clue. I attended an interview. It was here actually, and thought this is good training. And then it was my name attached to the announcement of the winner. I think the first thing that happened was my tongue went to my teeth, making sure there was no chocolate cake on it. I just went into complete shock. It was the same kind of shock that I felt when asked to become the administrator. I was going to a meeting that day. I felt sure they were going to ask me to chair something else. I'd said no, 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 no to myself all the way in the car there. Whatever they asked me to do, no matter how attractive it is, I have enough on my plate. And it was a never in your wildest dreams moment. It's both of them were like, you know, in myself, I'm thinking, are you sure? And you think, am I dreaming? Is this for real? And for me, it was a physical reaction. It was like I had swallowed a bee and it was just going backwards and forwards across my body, up and down. I was hot, it was buzzing. And I don't know if it brings out the best or worst in me when those things happen, because I can't recall the conversation I had after each of those momentous occasions. I know at the Telstra Awards, I took to the stage and made an off-the-cuff speech. And I know I said a definite yes to becoming administrator. They said, would you like to go away and think about it? I said, oh, no, I'm fine. Would you like to discuss it with your husband? Oh, he's in Alice Springs, where you might like to actually get back. No, no, we're all good. And who knows what else I said. But anyway. But another highlight was, of course, becoming a CEO, and more than that, building a team of great people, more than 300 people of them. And they worked with me day in, day out to make an organisation the best it could be. And that was to be an employer of choice and full-on commitment to continuous improvement. And that was just the greatest joy of my life. I worked with amazing people, and you really can make departments and businesses and organisations amazing. And that comes out of trust. You know, there'll be 1% of the people, if that, doing the wrong thing. And if somebody's doing the wrong thing, guess what? None of us are all too keen on them, because you have to pick up their job when they're not there, or you just don't feel like you trust them a great deal. You know, the majority of your colleagues are all there for the right reasons. And when that trust builds, it doesn't matter whether you're working in the office, you're working from home, you're on the phone to your mum during working hours, you're having a little bit longer lunch, and on your birthday you're enjoying yourself, whatever it is, and somebody trusts you, you give it your all, and everybody's a winner. And I know this from experience. Now I know that there are some positions where you have to be at your desk. There's a handover. You know, you're on a roster that requires you to be present, but there are other ways to incentivise the workplace where everybody's a winner. And the other tip I have there that always came to me is that I was always learning from my colleagues. Now for a little bit of bragging. I must say that meeting and hosting Prince Charles, now King Charles, and meeting Queen Camilla and other members of the royal family are up there. But of course, meeting with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace rates. Wow, it really rates. Everything from the Dorgie, who was a part of the Corgi clan, but not actually a Corgi. So Her Majesty's sister, Princess Margaret's dashhounds, in Her Majesty's words, had a dalliance with her Corgi. That's the name Dorgie. So, you know, that's the question. On the way to meet with Her Majesty, there's a fluffy tail in a basket. Like, who was that? Hence the story. You never think, well, I definitely think a little girl from Smithton on the northwest coast of Tasmania would have her name announced by her driver at the gates of Buckingham Palace. I was used to being on the outside, peering in, as we do, looking at the guards, seeing if their facial expressions will change. And my name was announced and the gates opened. It's like, I just want to say, can you reverse and can we do all of that again? I was too shy to video it all, you know, I've got my hat and my outfit on and trying to get it all right. But then I was escorted by Her Majesty's Lady in Waiting to meet with the Queen and the question came, would I be okay if we met in her private quarters on this occasion? It's like, look, yes, of course. But I still can't believe it. We had wonderful and enlightening conversations that were easy and full of good humour. And the rest, I have to say to you, is in the vault. And by the way, my friends tell me I'm the best secret keeper. So there's a lot in this vault, and I think that's a good trait. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. Sometimes when you get told something, you just have to tell somebody else that you think will keep it secret. But there are secret keepers and there are secret keepers, and I'm a secret keeper. Another more recent and mind-boggling unexpected occasion was being formally adopted by the East Arnhem Gallowinku mob. It was an amazing and unexpected ceremony at Government House, and that will remain with me forever. What a privilege. And I'm very proud to be a beloved sister and auntie to many. I met with Dr. Gutha Jaka at the Botanic Gardens the other day, and she showed me a photo of a baby, and she said, she's your mother. I thought, wow, how lucky am I? The Territory has really loved me so much and my family, and for that to happen, I can't put into words really. So that brings me to today. There are numerous patronages. So when you're no longer the administrator, you resign all of your patronages. And as with former administrators, there are those organisations like, for me, the Isolated Children's Parents Association of the Northern Territory. Those women came to me. I suppose I'm a female administrator, the second female administrator, and wanted me to remain with them. And there's a few other patronages there. I'm Deputy Chair of the Royal Flying Doctors Service for South Australia and the Northern Territory. I mentor to a few, and that's formal mentoring. I'm the National President of the Order of Australia Association, and last year you'll probably be aware that I co-chaired the Northern Territory Voluntary Assisted Dying Expert Advisory Panel. And as I mentioned to you before, to say you're always learning would be an understatement. My day job today is a special advisor to the Australian Government. So I started a consultancy. I didn't know how to start a consultancy, but anyway, it's worked out, and I now know how to invoice when I need to, and all those kind of things. But still, my favourite job is as mum to Coco and wife to that bloke I met when I was 14, who's worked with a few people in the room, smiling at some of them. So, Territorians, be kind, be generous, authentic and courageous. A life lived in fear is a life half lived. So back yourself and go for it. Thank you.
Inspirational. Spread knowledge and love. That's what I've got, and that's what I'm going to remember. So questions. Please free to ask any questions you might have in the room or online. We've got some time, like 5 minutes for questions. So have we got anything?
On the chat. You might want to click on the chat.
Yeah. Vicki, thank you. Lovely.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. Yes, and thank you very much for the introduction. You talk about trust, and this day of the fast information flow, your trust actually can be impacted quite quickly by flying information that is not necessarily true. What is the best advice you can give us in relation to stay in your lane, stay your course without letting all these interruptions affect not only your trust, but how others may see you?
Yes, look, I respect that's tricky with the fast flow of information, but you know, it's a bit of an old saying, but instincts are important. You know, if for some reason it's just feeling a bit icky or not right, it probably is. So when I'm in that situation, I take the information on board and I don't share it. If I feel wholeheartedly that this is good information I've received and it's worthy of sharing, I share it. If I'm given information that I've been asked not to share, I definitely do not share it. So it's always, sometimes it's a quiet moment too, because some things that you read about or are shared with you, and you may not be expressly asked not to share it, you know, your instincts will be, well, does that benefit another person to share it? Is it worthy of sharing? Is that what I want to be talking about over a coffee or a cup of tea? So I tend to try and stay on the positive side. That's not to say that I don't have the privilege of people in challenging roles wanting to have hard conversations with me that I said stay in the vault, but they're certainly never shared. So I do tend to try and take the best out of things. And I know that certainly makes me sound 60, but I do. And that's what served me well, not speaking out of turn. There is no doubt there are times when I have not spoken up when I possibly should have. But again, that comes with experience. And all I can say is, you know, learn from that. And yeah, as I said, be courageous. At the end of the day, there's a difference to being, you know, manipulative with information than being courageous. Like, this is a message, I don't support it, and I'm happy to share with other people that I don't support it, because that's how we get stronger, and that's how we, you know, build movements around having things working right and as they should be in the world. Because as policies change, as politicians change, as governments change, as world policy change, and globally things change, you know, that doesn't mean we need to lose sight of who we are and what we believe in just because it's a trend or it's a particular belief at any given time.
Question. Thanks a lot. I don't think that were never ambitious. Yet that your journey and your career journey, your life journey is so impressive. All of the decisions that you landed. So I'm in my early 30s. I'm sorry, my name is Catherine. I work at KPMG Australia in the Management Consulting Division. It's a corporate role where your system set up that you have to be ambitious to step up in the corporate ladder. But it's never the thing that kind of set with me of you know, climbing up for the sake of climbing up. How do you, but I still wanted to kind of step up in a different role. How do you manage the balance of being ambitious to stay in the zone but not being aggressive where you lost yourself?
You probably answered your own question. Look, I encourage ambition, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't me. I was, it just wasn't a part of my makeup. But I have seen many successful people who are ambitious, and I have encouraged that ambition. But I think what you've said is that, you know, you can be ambitious without sort of grabbing at everything that, you know, comes along, and being aggressive as opposed to assertive, and you know, treading on other people's toes. If you are working well and you're working smart and you're being generous and kind at the same time, which can be a juggle, and you're giving it your all, I think you'll be recognised for what you are. If you're finding that's not the case, I would possibly suggest that you're not working in an organisation where you're being valued, to be quite frank.
That leads me to a question around value alignment.
Yes.
And, you know, we all work through various stages of our careers. And I'm taking from what you've said today that value alignment has been quite important to you. Can you tell us a little bit about how that has been a part of your journey?
Look, I put it down, you know, I was privileged to have, I was a late mistake, my parents said. Surprise, but my parents had me after 4 naughty boys later in life, and they invested in me, and we didn't have a great deal, but they really believed in me. I remember bringing home a school report that I was rather worried about, but they were never worried about it. Like, it would sit on that kitchen table for days on end. You know, you just open it and have a look. You know? And, you know, I'd probably get 57 in science, and they'd go, fantastic. go, really? But yes, it was this unconditional love, and that I think gave me this confidence to, at a very young age, to know I knew certain things. I was never going to live in that small town. I loved it. I was homesick for it, but there was more to it. There was Melbourne. You know, I could get off that island and go to the mainland one day. You know, I was a dreamer. And in small towns, you can, you know, it's cliquey, and I probably didn't fit in. But I just knew within myself that what was important to me would see me through. Because that self-talk was within me, it got me through some rough patches, and I knew that it always would. And as I said, I just met the right bloke. I was 14 when I met Craig. I mean, I was young. We were going out and we travelled together. I didn't marry until I was 29, but nonetheless, you know, it's a long apprenticeship. But you know, I had a partner who also backed me, you know. So those are privileged things that happen in life and that doesn't mean to say there haven't been ups and downs with my career. But yes, I sort of worked on knowing that I would only be successful if I brought other people along with me, because, you know, your team is what makes things work. You can't, unless you go on a journey of, you know, that solo, just my own business, my own consultancy. That wasn't me. I was a part of large organisations. I needed to build trust relationships with teams, and to do that required a lot of generosity and a lot of time and a lot of hours of work. And so it was just, doing I suppose, the hard yards. And when the going got tough, saying to myself, well, you've still got your little friend, and stay in your own lane. You'll come out the other side. The sun will come up tomorrow. And have you done the right thing? And I think that's probably the core of it for me. I often say to myself, have you done the right thing? If you haven't, fix it.
Question about the self-care.
Yeah.
So you are such a busy woman, and how you manage all of that, because these days we all have, like, maybe not everybody, but we have like full-time job, a business, maybe some people have family, kids, dogs, all other commitments. How did you manage all that? How did you look after your mental health, physical, and all of that? How did you overcome any stress and any problems that you might have?
I probably juggled it like the rest of you, to be honest. You know, there were days where it's overwhelming and you're worried about how you're going to fit it all into a week and if you've made the right decisions. But yeah, I worked out a mechanism just to turn off. And for me, that was gardening. Like, I love planting seeds and watching them come into seedlings. And I have my own vegetable garden and fruit trees and flowers. And I walk. I just walk and walk and walk till it's gone. And I listen to AC/DC.
There's a question online.
Yes.
How do you keep up with all that you give, especially when getting older?
Yes, just keep on keeping on, I suppose. I'm fortunate to be in good health, and I juggle my own diary these days, but I like to be 11 out of 10 organised, to be honest with you. I'm just an organised person at home, in my work life, my social life. And to a ridiculous extent, I would have to say, I'd rather I was probably less organised, because it bothers me. So it's, I'm not sure that that's a positive. I very much admire those that are not as organised as I am, that can let a few things go. And Veronica over here, who worked with me, he's nodding. It's like, yeah, you know, she has to have it all a certain way rather than sort of being a little bit more relaxed. So it's probably a downfall rather than a positive, but yeah, it keeps me on top of things in my way.
Nothing online. I think there was a comment. Not a question, but Sorry. Thank you, Honor. When you were CEO, I admire your leadership and management style so much that I asked to meet you and learn from your style of leadership. I then quietly followed you through all that you were involved in, including AICD. So I think you've got that to admire. You made that mentor to someone. So great to hear you today. Yeah. To hear your delivery today provides such confidence to know that you're always learning and trying to figure out what you always want. There's a question there.
I didn't have a question, but I'll let you know that you're one of those mentors from a distance from me. I think you're the classiest woman that I've ever met, and it's a pleasure to hear your story. Thank you.
Thanks. Absolutely.
Right, last one. Yeah.
You mentioned that you might share who that male mentor was.
Yeah.
If not by name, like I'm just really interested in what sort of role that they
Oh,
were in.
okay. Look, I'll out him. So his name is Chris Tudor. So Chris Tudor was he used to call himself the headmaster, was the principal of St Philip's College. He had a quiet and meaningful way about him. He's a wonderful Territorian based in Alice Springs. So if you ever have the privilege of meeting Chris Tudor, I hope none of his relatives or anybody who knows Chris is online, yes, I think he's an amazing person and an incredible Territorian. So sorry for stalking you, Chris.
Now a lot of Chris talking. Any more questions or comments? Yeah.
Then I'm working at big issue with that as well. Do you have an example of a major setback in your career and how did you overcome that or overcome that adversity?
Oh, sure. Look, so many. Yeah, look, I think for me, when there were setbacks or really big challenges, my father used to say to us as children, just get up and put one foot in front of the other and just meet challenges head on. So I would do that. But in meeting them head on, I didn't, go full throttle at people. It was like, let's deal with the problem. Let's, get rid of the elephant in the room, take time to break down why this has happened, how it's happened, and how we can fix it going forward, but include others in the process. And if it's, as it often can be, I've always worked in the people industry, it involves people, and you're not going to please all the people all of the time, that's life. But if you come at it, fairly and squarely, often people, if not at the time, will forgive you and respect you for it, but later might say, well, if I was put in the same situation, we all have those quiet moments, don't we, when we sort of put our head on the pillow overnight and go, well, was I, if it was me, was I dealt with fairly and reasonably? Well, if the boot was on the other foot, was that okay? So I think just be sensible, be balanced, but even the hardest decisions you have to make can be done in a way that is respectful of the person or of the situation.
Well, I'm afraid we have to kind of wrap this up because we're almost 10. Thank you, Anna, for this was really amazing to hear about your life story and all the important work that you've done, especially for people like me who are a bit ambitious and want to have a useful and a meaningful career. So thank you very much for sharing. Thank you all for attending in person and online. If you have any more questions in the room and if you want to do some networking, feel free to stay around. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Bye.